wanted Sid to have an opportunity to describe the current roadmap for his telemetry group and then talk about product analytics. If you would rather just focus this on product analytics,
I'm okay with that schedule.
All right, so that's the agenda. We want to cover the telemetry roadmap. Sid already prepared something. Sid, do you want to present or?
Yeah, let me share my screen.
Follow along, and then we can move on to the topic of product analytics.
Okay, cool. Let me know when you see my screen.
We see it.
Okay, cool. So let's get started. This is the roadmap that goes up to the end of Q3. So I'll start with what we're currently working on. So currently, we're working on a few things related to usage ping and the versions app. So Sid, as you're aware, right, in support for SMAU and AMAU for the past few months, the telemetry team has been focused on making sure that usage ping is working as expected and the counters are successfully returning data without any timeouts. So we fixed the broken counters and optimized others that were not performing well so we can get back data from the instances. And right now we're in the process of making sure that usage ping is resilient. We want to make sure that if a new complex counter is added to usage ping, we want to make sure the entire payload doesn't break, so we still get back data. So that's the hardening usage ping that you see here. It should be done at the end of this milestone. We might have some lingering queries to optimize, but for the most part, hardening usage ping should be wrapped up 13.0 milestone. And the other thing we're working on is automating the versions database export. So right now, the Postgres importer data pipeline from versions to Snowflake is broken. So in the interim, the team has been relying on manual data exports from infrastructure along with a manual import from data engineering every 14 days. So we want to automate this because this data is important, right? It's used for SMAU. It's also something that'll play a large part in North Star metrics. And the other item is version app enhancements. So right now, the versions app is a collection endpoint as well as a basic reporting app for usage ping data. And what we're noticing is that it times out a lot and it's not really a robust reporting environment. So what we're trying to do is replicate all the reporting in Sisense. So more folks have access to it and it's more resilient. And the other two items, which are event tracking for self-managed instances and aggregating snowplow data via usage ping. So this is related to one of the biggest pain points and challenges we hear about a lot at GitLab, which is that telemetry on self-managed is very limited. So the information we get from usage ping is basically counts of the instances Postgres database. So we are working on coming up with a solution that allows event tracking for client-side UI interactions on self-managed instances. Originally, we were looking at maybe setting up a daily job that parses log files and then stores that data into the database instance, and then we get it back through usage ping. But now, after we saw the MVC for the product analytics, we started looking at maybe implementing a snowplow collector inside a self-managed instance, and then eventually resurface the snowplow events back to us in aggregate via usage ping. And the last item we have on the roadmap is, it's very important. We hear about this a lot, that customers want to see telemetry data. So this one requires a little bit more discovery to more deeply understand the problem. So it's a little bit more longer term in our roadmap, but we hope to start that discovery in Q2. Any questions? That was pretty high level, but.
Yeah, thanks for that. That all makes sense. Standardized snowplow, what does that mean?
So that one, we currently have snowplow tracking on gitlab.com, but it's not standardized in how events are tracked. So different teams are implementing different snowplow events. We want to just standardize that schema so that everyone's using the same schema across all their events. It's more of it's less engineering work for that. It's more about understanding how to define that schema that can be used across customers, across about.gitlab.com and gitlab.com.
Cool.
And Sid, you currently have one engineer we're trying to get you at least one more to help with this core telemetry work. Is this timeline based on one engineer, or are you expecting, are you baking in help here?
Yeah, this is based on one engineer, and then I believe we have 50% of Alper's time, so it's 1.5.
Okay, so if we add one to the mix, you could possibly speed these up, but these aren't counting on anything you don't have already. All right, thank you. Sid, do you have any other questions on this?
Not on this slide.
Okay, cool. Anything else you want to cover, Sid, or should we move on to product analytics?
Yeah, we can move on. We can touch on this slide after we talk about that. It's kind of related to how we're approaching that, and it's similar to how Sid was looking at the MVC for product analytics.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so a couple of things like, so product analytics is something that we don't just need at GitLab. It's something every user of GitLab needs. GitLab is made to, you make software with GitLab, and it doesn't make sense to make software and then not look at how it's used. And that is what product analytics is. So product analytics should be a feature in our monitoring stage. And we should rename this group, this telemetry group, to product analytics. And we should start working like we're a feature of GitLab. We're not just measuring GitLab. We're building functionality for our users, and we're dog fooding that. We're also measuring GitLab with a GitLab feature. Still taking some time to do that for the other monitoring feature, APM. And there's a lot of resistance. So I hope this one goes a lot better and a lot faster, hopefully. I think it's important. That's why I spend time in my weekends coding the product analytics feature poorly. My co-founder thinks it's important. Dimitri, you want to talk about why you think it's important and how you're going to contribute to it?
Well, why it's important? Yeah, I don't want to go this way, but about contributing, yeah. So I think Sid approach is pretty logical. Let's make our simple collector, put the data in Postgres, and then figure this out in a way how we can consume it for ourselves, and then make it a feature that every other GitLab users can use. And in a way how I can contribute to that, I can take Sid merge request and just get it to the shape where it's it passes a code review and is good enough to be merged in master. And from there, like once it's there, once we have custom collector running, when we have this functionality for writing events to the database, to the GitLab database, from there we can just decide on how we move forward, how we aggregate the data, enrich them, represent them. Do we render them in GitLab immediately? What happens next is the subject for this to discuss.
Okay.
Cool. I think that Sid Reddy, I'm really impressed with what you've done so far. Getting the SMAU data, that's now finally working and hardened. So that's a great achievement.
Thank you.
Going forward, we have to be considerate to kind of our community. It's very like privacy oriented. Anything we do, we have to be transparent about what we do and why we do it. This setting it up this way and kind of dogfooding our own feature will allow us to aggregate on the instance, right, so that we only get aggregate information. I think that takes away a lot of concerns that self-managed customers have about tracking individual users on their clickstream. And also, I think that if we have it as a GitLab feature, it makes much more sense to people why we're actually using that. It's not only is it not third party, it's not even different software. It's just part of GitLab. And yeah, we use GitLab to help improve GitLab. I think it's a much more understandable story. And long term, I would love for us to use GitLab to monitor GitLab. So instead of pushing everything to SciSense and doing it there, I think it should just be GitLab features. But I want to be super pragmatic. We're going to get a ton of data in. So I'm okay with the SciSense strategy. We do have to make sure that people can also use it on their own instance. So like, I imagine if you install GitLab server, that you get one meta project. The monitoring in that project, the APM monitoring, monitors like all the application, like CPU usage and stuff like that, requests per second, failure rate. And the product analytics part of that project measures all how people are using that GitLab instance. So we got to give the data back to people there. That's also the incentive to actually turn it on.
Yep. Makes sense.
Sid, either one of you, do you imagine this product analytics, what's currently in the MVC that DZ is going to work on, does that eventually replace usage ping, or will those have different purposes?
I don't think it will replace usage ping, because I think we still need a way to get the data from the self-managed instance up to our aggregate instance. And people measuring their app don't have that problem, because the app sends it to GitLab, and then from GitLab, it doesn't need to go anywhere else. So I think we still need the usage ping. And Dimitri will work on it, but I also assume that the engineers, after they solved some of the low-hanging fruit, like standardizing, well, I mean, the low-hanging fruit is probably make sure the version.gitlab.com database doesn't get slowed down all the time. But stuff like that, if they solve that they will join Dimitri in that effort and maintain it over time, as Dimitri at some point will move on.
So this would enable anyone using GitLab to understand how their own app is being used. So this isn't necessarily about monitoring GitLab. It's about the customer understanding usage of their own app. And if that were in a self-hosted instance, that data would come back to them, and then there wouldn't be privacy concerns back to GitLab. Am I thinking about that the right way?
Yeah, so you have the custom apps they're making with GitLab. It sends it back to their GitLab instance. They analyze it there. We also have kind of the GitLab instance itself, monitoring itself through the Meta project. And then we have the usage ping taking that data out and sending it back to version.gitlab.com. So we can also have an aggregate view of what's happening and where we should invest, what part of a GitLab we should invest in and what part is hardly used.
Okay. All right. So this thing could be used in two ways. The customer points it at their own app that they've developed themselves. We would also have it running on GitLab so that they see who's using GitLab and how. And then it would get packaged up. At least the GitLab data would get packaged up in an aggregate way and sent back to us via usage ping. So usage ping continues to be the bridge back to us.
I think so. And I would say only the GitLab data, and not at least like we're not entitled to any data of their customs apps they're making, not even aggregate data.
Right.
It's
questions? Okay.
Go ahead.
It's three ways. So customer applications with GitLab, then GitLab itself for the customer, and then the third one is aggregated data for us from their instance.
Right.
And only the last one is not directly benefit them. It benefits them over us making GitLab better, but the first two is actually for their benefit.
Yeah. Sid,
Yeah,
ready or out?
for their direct benefit. The other one's also benefiting, but indirectly. Yep.
Sid, ready or Alper, do you have questions on this? Want to make sure you're.
Yeah, I think
these two.
we've been talking about this a little bit in the telemetry team, and Alper can add more color, but we just want to make sure that the data that we add to our instance, because it's right now a transactional database, we need to optimize it for analytics. So maybe creating a new analytics instance to store this data might be something that we should discuss. Because if we start storing all these events into Postgres right now, it's already slow, right? So
Yeah, great that you bring it up. For now, I want to make sure that it's running by default for any customer.
okay.
So what you do if you say, oh, we'll just have another Postgres instance, that's easy for us. For a lot of our customers, that's now extra work to activate it. And if the administrator doesn't activate it, the users can't use it, and then nobody starts using it. And we've seen that it makes a world of difference. GitLab pages, you have to set up manually, doesn't have a ton of usage. Kubernetes clusters doesn't have a ton of usage. All the stuff that works by default has a ton of usage. So it's like you kind of reduce the impact that you have by an order of magnitude by not having it kind of run by default. So with this, we're going to have it run by default. There's a reason that there's already rate limiting in the product right now in the MR. So at some point, we want to turn on that rate limit. We kind of want to turn it higher, and it will do things to the database that a single database can't handle. Now, my hope is that we'll be able to shard the database before that happens. Let's hope. If that is not the case, maybe at that point we need to take it out. But what we're not going to do is by default make sure it's another database, because that's going to cause usage to be 10 times lower, and then people don't benefit from the product, and all our effort has an order of magnitude less impact.
If necessary, we can even clean up the old records. Like we can think of different ways how to make it sustainable for I don't know, for at least a year until we figure out like what is the best way to do it.
Exactly. That is the plan on the kind of in the background. Like, how can we do that? You could even imagine a collector collecting a bunch of events before it writes them in batch. And instead of writing single events, it just has a counter that it adds to the record. Like, I've measured 52 of these in the last 2 seconds. So there's always all kinds of ways to optimize this, and we should just figure that out as we go along. And maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to keep it in the main database and make it a much easier and much more used experience.
That makes sense. So because of our knowledge of snowplow tracking right now on our own instance, we can sort of understand what we want to track or keep counts of.
I had some comments, if possible. So the telemetry or the new PA, product analytics team, we were talking about the same thing all the time. So we are very excited, exactly the direction you suggested. And basically, let's say you have a GitLab self-managed or gitlab.com project. You have your own application with a single URL. You are able to start monitoring your project. And that's, I think, a brilliant idea. And if we are, like if our trackers and collectors are Snowplow compatible to begin with, that also solves a lot of problems. And another lucky thing is that as the telemetry team, we were exactly in the right time about to, develop the same things or things which are overlapping a lot. So that means we can dog food those ideas perfectly well because we need it actually.
Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
I had another question, just to high level think about it, because if so right now on gitlab.com, we're not tracking user ID, right? Is that something we want to take into consideration when the tracking is done on the self-hosted instance? Because they would want to see user level information, right? On their own instance.
Maybe not. let's roll it out first, and then we can add that. And we don't want user level tracking. I assume the users of GitLab, even if it's self-managed, maybe they don't want user level tracking, or maybe we need that at some point. I don't know, but I don't want to take a decision in this meeting, and I don't want us to overdo it. Right now,
yeah, just something to think about. Yeah.
We still don't know what parts of our application are even used. So like, let's get some basic stuff up and running, and then make those decisions. But maybe aggregate data is enough, or maybe there's a way to track to kind of track progression without tracking users. I don't know. It's those are tough questions that the team will have to decide on.
Yep.
I have
You know,
one.
it's a 5-minute warning for the allotted time for this meeting.
Sorry, can I talk? Or
Yeah, go ahead, Alpo.
yeah, I had one more thing to add. The version application itself is actually a collector and as a simple presentation layer. Even the usage ping itself is an event which can be sent through that new API. I mean, basically long term, we don't even need the version application. We may collect the data in the same way by sending it through an event. So usage ping is just a type of event which has background collected calculated data. So we can even, get rid of the usage ping and version up long term and use that new event system.
Cool. But for now, we're keeping the usage ping. We're going to make sure it works right. But I don't disagree.
Great.
So,
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
I was curious about how Sid Reddy should think about working with DZ. Do you want to be considered part of the product analytics team for the time being? Do you want to work on your own and check in periodically? What's the best way?
Do you have some, I don't know, what is a way of work for you, for your team?
Sid Reddy, I'll let you answer that and propose the best way for DZ to hook in.
So right now we're doing a spike to explore this effort. So maybe we can sync up on Monday. We have Jerome coming back and Jerome's our engineering manager. We have a weekly sync on Monday. Maybe we can just go through that, get the current status, and then go from there on how you want to interact.
Okay, just send me an invite, and yeah, I'll see at the time if I can make it. Anyway, yeah, you can find me in the merge request. You can find me in the issue. I'm always responding in GitLab, and yeah, my intention for next week is clear. I just go to the merge request and start shaping it. Start refactoring it and get it into better shape. And my objective number 2 is check out the new Go collector and see if it writes the data in the Postgres in a compatible with official Snowplow collectors way to ensure that the structure is is okay. So this is these 2 things will take me easily a week. So
okay, great. Yeah, we can definitely sync on that, and we can share the research that we've done so far, and then go from there.
Elon?
Yeah, I just want to ask, for the longer term vision, is the idea of the product analytics, what kind of customer under which circumstance they will choose GitLab product analytics versus maybe just add a tag for Google Analytics or Amplitude Mixpanel, all those more matured analytics tools.
Yeah, the big advantages is that it should work out of the box. So when you choose a template, it should just work, and there's very little setup to do. It will also be more affordable than like Amplitude and alternatives to that, because it's already part of your GitLab installation. You're already paying for it, and everything is in context. Like, it's easy to go from product analytics to the APM monitoring. It's easy to kind of integrate an issue with the product analytics and everything else. So I think that this single application experience should really help as well.
Mm-hmm.
also think that increasingly you'll see Google Analytics endpoints being blocked by app blockers and things like that. So I think we'll have a change where people will go to first-party analytics, where people will find it unacceptable to send data to a third party. So companies will have to run their own product analytics.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking. Hey, Scott, what's the timeline on renaming the team to product analytics and getting that as a category on the monitor stage on the homepage?
Would ask Sid Reddy how long, when do you think you could turn that around?
I'll get started on it today. Yeah, hopefully
Thanks
this
for
week.
that.
Yeah.
We have, that will be great. We have one problem. There's already 8 items under the monitoring stage. I don't have a set opinion, but a suggestion would be to make generic alerts part of incident management. I think they fall under that, but that's just a suggestion.
Okay. Maybe under manage? Feels like a manage kind of value prop.
Well, incident management, I think incident management and alert management are kind of the same thing. Alert management is just a way to send something to incident management from an external system. So it feels, and manage are things that are across the entire application. So I think it's fine. I think there's just 2 categories which are really similar.
Okay. All right, Sid, maybe Sid Reddy. We probably want to involve Kenny in that because that's in his section.
Okay.
See if there's a product category option there. So I think changing the team name is straightforward. Establishing the right category might take a little bit longer.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank
All
you.
right.